Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. I am your host, Henry Harris. Thank you, as always, I say that, for taking this opportunity to watch the show today. We have a very interesting show today. We're going to talk about marriage and mental health. I was telling Victoria prior to the episode that we've covered sexual health and all many other subjects as it relates to mental health awareness, but it never dawned on me how marriage and mental health coincides with each other and how they're so connected with each other. I never thought about it that way, especially now with COVID and different things, how mental health can affect marriages. I really never thought that that was even a possibility. So I'm so honored to have Victoria Secrist on the show today. Victoria Secrist is a licensed associate marriage and family therapist, and she practiced out of Arizona. And at the end of the program, we'll give you some information on how you can connect with her for resources, or you may need some of her services. Victoria, thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is such an important topic, and especially during Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm just glad that we can have this conversation.
Yes. My first question is, how does marriage affect mental health?
Yeah, so I'm going to break this down a little bit. So I like to take this pretty simplistic view on mental health of, do you have a brain?
Yes.
Exactly, me too. So that means that we all experience mental health. We all have this responsibility to maintain our emotional and mental well-being. And I like to break it down in such a simplistic way because oftentimes I think people think like, oh, I don't experience some of these more severe mental health conditions. Whereas most people at some point in their lives are going to experience things like anxiety and depression. And so I view this really starting with the individual and really getting an understanding of yourself. What are my struggles? How do I feel? Do I have past traumas that are impacting how I relate to others? And so, we have our own experiences, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and then we come into a relationship and then maybe later on into a marriage. And sometimes we just think, okay, great. Like, I'm with my person, life is great. We have these ideas within our society that we're not whole until we are within this union, which is not true. Absolutely not true. And so then we come into this relationship that maybe is supposed to solve our problems. And after some time, we realize, oh, wait a minute, like, I haven't changed. Yep. I still feel the same. And now I'm having additional conflicts with my partner, or maybe, they're also struggling with their own mental well-being. So there's definitely these forces at play that are going to show up, especially if you are not aware or really focused on your own personal mental health.
I'm glad you said that because I know so many people that do that. Some people go into relationships and they get married, and I'm guilty of it. Thinking that, well, if I do this person is going to complete me. They're going to make me happy, and this is going to take away all my mental health issues. And come to find out, it's like it just pops up like, da-da, I'm still here.
Exactly. And, sometimes it will actually highlight some of those mental health struggles that we may be having. When we start to have stresses in our relationships, that can really consume us. That can impact every aspect of our day. And it just feels like, wow, like, people might start internalizing these feelings of like, what's wrong with me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I making my partner feel this way or do this? And I use those terms because oftentimes we feel like we're responsible
Mm-hmm.
for our partner's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and we're not,
Yeah.
right? We can influence how someone feels, of course, but at the end of the day, we are responsible for our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors.
Yeah, that is so true. My next question is, can marriages, um, many people may feel hopeless and they may think, well, there is no way that my marriage can survive this mental illness or mental health that we're dealing with. Is there any possibilities of a marriage actually surviving that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have seen, so now there, when it comes to mental health conditions, there's always going to be a spectrum of severity. So I have seen couples who maybe are experiencing addiction, they have their own past trauma, maybe now they're struggling with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and they're able to come together, whether it's through therapy, coming together with really vulnerability to share what their experiences are and recognizing that there are issues within the marriage that they need to focus on and work on. I have also seen on the more severe end where a marriage did, both parties decided to part ways because the individual was not caring for their mental health and it just completely changed who they are. And so that was a more severe case. I think what is more common is that couples can absolutely repair their relationship, that it does not have to lead in divorce or walking away. However, that takes a willingness on both people to, one, have that responsibility to recognize what is my role in this or what am I struggling with? And then the other partner to recognize, do I also have some anxiety that I'm experiencing or depression? Am I in a place where I can really support my partner through this experience? Because oftentimes I'm thinking specifically of a couple where there is PTSD, where there was addiction, where first there might have been some more focus on stabilization for that one individual who was experiencing those more severe conditions. And then, there's always going to be a transition in something like couples therapy, where maybe first it's more about stabilization, really, let's get you into your own individual therapy as well. And then, how can you be available for that support? How can you take care of yourself, but then also be there for your partner? And I think there is a lot of self-awareness that plays a role, and it's not easy and it is hard.
What are some warning signs that mental illness may be manifesting inside the marriage that they may not be aware of?
Yeah, so
Because some people may be in denial. Some people may think there's nothing wrong when it's obvious that there is, but maybe they don't know what to call it. Maybe they don't know what's really coming up beneath the surface. So how can someone actually see the warning signs that there may be some mental health issues going on in my relationship or marriage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like this is going to be a multi-part question because this is a little bit more challenging of a question. So if we take a look at the relationship, you usually know your spouse inside and out. You know what their behaviors, maybe thoughts and feelings are on a typical day. So if you start noticing things that are out of the ordinary, so let's say that your spouse always took the trash out and maybe you have children, took the kids to school, and now they're starting to maybe run late or they're just not taking care of those responsibilities. Those could be some signs of like, hey, like something might not be right within your partner. And so really noticing, are things not getting done? Are they sleeping more? Is there behaviors that you're noticing that are out of the ordinary that, might need to be explored further? So anytime there is a significant change of behaviors, that's when I think it's really important to have that awareness to really be able to talk about it. Now, I think it's also important to differentiate between intimate partner violence and then what you can maybe expect to see if you don't know that there is a problem. Because anytime that there's violence in a relationship, that's not going to be a safe environment.
Yeah.
And from my perspective too, and for marriage and family therapists, we would always recommend that individual gets treatment. We're not going to work with the couple just because it's going to be too dangerous. Like I said, like couples therapy, especially, it's hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's hard. My couples work really hard to see the progress that they have in their relationship. So if you're starting to notice, maybe you're not realizing that there is a problem, going back to that idea of maybe internalizing the problems of your relationship on yourself. So are you taking that responsibility for your partner? That could be a sign of, hey, maybe we need to check the health of the relationship. Are you feeling blamed by your partner for their actions, or do you feel like you're walking on eggshells within the relationship? Again, just some more signs of like, maybe I need to examine this further, whether it's that individual seeking out some support on their own, or being able to, again, go to their partner and have those vulnerable, intimate conversations of, hey, like something doesn't feel right. Can we talk about this? I've noticed some changes. Are you doing okay? Is there anything I can do to support you through this time?
It has been said that marriage can be both challenging and it can be exciting at the same time. Can marriage itself affect mental health?
No, of course. Right? Like I said, going back to that idea of
somebody said a quote one time that said the leading cause to divorce is marriage. I thought it was funny, but given that I've been married a couple of times, I guess it depends on who you marry, and there's a lot that comes into play with that. But I thought about the question, because it depends. I mean, for some people, I don't feel like my motto is marriage is for someone. It may not be for everyone. And for some people, they may not be wired for that. Then some people are like, well, marriage itself may affect my mental health, so I'm not going to participate. So, what are your thoughts about somebody that's watching that's like, I don't think I'm ever going to get married. I think it may affect my mental health, marriage itself, even relationships. Some people choose to stay single to protect their mental health. So, can marriage or I know the context is marriage. Can marriage itself affect mental health, or does it just depend on who the person is?
So first, Henry, I just have to say, I appreciate that joke. It made me laugh, especially because my significant other loves to tell me that joke. And being, marriage and family therapist, my career of choice, is just like, okay, well, yeah, true, right? So oftentimes, even with my couples who are married, I still call it a relationship, right? Yeah. Because it is like you can't have a marriage without a relationship, but you can have a relationship without marriage. And so you're absolutely right. Marriage is not going to be for everyone. And also everyone has their own ideas, beliefs, expectations of what that word even means, whether they view it as, hey, this is my faith-based union, or this is a legal contract. It's going to be different for everyone. And you have to be okay with your understanding of it, and then also signing up for how your spouse feels about marriage. Oftentimes, we don't have those conversations before marriage of, hey, this is what I expect from you, or this is what I expect from myself. And that can also lead to some challenges down the road. When you start expecting your spouse to do things and they're not, because they probably don't know. I often tell my clients, I don't have a wire that goes from my brain to yours. So unless you tell me, I'm just not going to know.
Yeah.
And so I know I need to kind of ring back into the question of marriage and mental health. So marriages, relationships in general, they can create a lot of stress for us in our lives, especially if we're not talking about conflict or things that are going on that we really need to address. We come into marriages not just from our own experiences, but we have our own belief systems that have come from our own parents. And the marriages or relationships that we viewed in our childhood and throughout our lives, that comes into play in our own marriages and relationships as well.
Wow, that's good. My next question is, what are some physical and emotional symptoms one can look for as it relates to marriage and mental health?
Yeah, great question. So I feel like this relates back to another question of really taking a look of, is there stress? Is there pressure that is coming up in the relationship? Are there other things like, and I say anxiety and depression because those are the two most common mental health conditions that we do think of. So things that we might experience if we're feeling depressed, we might have really low energy, right? Our appetite might change. And this goes for anxiety too. We might actually have less of an appetite, or we might have an increase of appetite. Checking in, do I feel more irritable? Am I sleeping more? Am I having darker thoughts of, hey, maybe I'm thinking about death or dying, or that I no longer want to be here? And I really appreciate you bringing up the physical symptoms, because we're always going to have physical symptoms along with our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's like with anxiety, those increased heart rate, feeling flushed, feeling maybe a little out of control at times, where our mind body, it's that connection, and it's going to manifest in a variety of different ways. And oftentimes, I think if people feel those physical symptoms first, that could lead them going to see their doctor, when it's actually that manifestation of some extra stress or mental health concerns that they're actually experiencing.
And my last question I would like to ask is, I know a lot of people shut down. A lot of people like to keep secrets as to their mental health. We know there's a stigma around mental health where a lot of people just don't want to even, they're ashamed to even discuss it. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience. It made it difficult for me to talk about my mental health because I've always, and I still struggle with this to this day, I hate conflict. And sometimes I don't know how to resolve conflict. And instead of confronting it, I always find myself either walking away or thinking of some other alternative instead of confronting. And now I know how important it is to open up and talk about it. Let's say in the event that I was married or someone that's watching that's married, my last question is, how important is it for those individuals to talk to their partner about their mental status?
Yeah, it is essential, right? It is essential, and it's challenging. Being able to have those conversations, well, I guess I should say that in most of the couples I work with, we're focusing on communication, right? Oftentimes when we're having conversations with our significant other, sometimes we want to blame or say, you did this and this made me feel this way. Whereas when I work with couples, I'm really trying to focus on, hey, what is your emotional experience that you're having here? Like, okay, you felt sad or you felt hurt and unseen because they didn't ask you how your day was. That's a pretty simple example, but that's something that I see pretty frequently. And so I try to focus on, let's get down to what you're actually experiencing. What is your emotional experience within the context of your relationship? Let's focus on that in the communication, and not everything, going down our laundry list of what our significant other did wrong or right in our eyes. But then it also comes to, how checked in are we with our own self? Are we able to have that self-reflection, that awareness with our own self? And being able to really start there and then extend that on to, being able to have that conversation with your partner. I recognize how scary it can be to have those conversations. It's not like, oh, hey, what'd you do yesterday or over your weekend? But being able to find, not necessarily find the right time, but being able to say, hey, can we talk? I have something I want to share with you. Can you set aside some time to talk to me so we can have just this one-on-one conversation where we don't have other distractions? Just really making sure that you and your spouse or partner have that availability to be present and to not have any additional distractions.
Thank you, Victoria, so much. This has been a wonderful and very educational and informative interview, and I really hope those that are watching, it will benefit them in some way. For more information about Victoria Secrist, you can visit evolvecounseling.az.com/Victoria-Secrist. We'll put that on the screen, and connect with her in any way. What services do you provide?
So I provide therapy for individuals and for couples primarily. So I really specialize in working with trauma. And so whether that's, trauma that's now showing up in the relationship or with individuals. But another great way to get a hold of me is actually going to be through my Instagram, which is going to be at The Hopeful Therapist, and that's hopeful with 2 L's.
Okay, awesome.
We hope you have enjoyed today's program. We want to connect with you. Visit us at facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You Show, or visit us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Henry Harris 100. We're so grateful you tuned in today and hope you have a fantastic day.